Okay. Well, it looks like we're connected now. Don't know how long this is going to last, but we will see. Okay. So let's continue reading from the Catechism of the Catholic Church about the Sabbath. Please be sure and watch the one that's right before this, part one, so that you can get caught up. But this is where you need to go. Really and truly, you need to go if you are going to talk about what the Catholic Church believes about the Sabbath. Hope I haven't gotten any popping. I've been trying really hard to keep it away so that we don't pop. Okay, so 2176. The celebration of Sunday observes the moral commandment inscribed by nature in the human heart to render to God an outward, visible, public, and regular worship. As a sign of his universal beneficence to all, Sunday worship fulfills the moral command of the Old Covenant, taking up its rhythm and spirit in the weekly celebration of the creator and redeemer of his people. Now, keep in mind something as we read. There is no such thing. Because oh dear, I'm sorry, I'm going to have my computer noises going on. I don't know how to turn those off. So anyway, so the Catholic Church does not have any notion of one day a week to worship. Catholics have the opportunity, and they have public worship in their churches almost every day. There could be a very small parish that does not have, like the priest has to have, has several churches. And so they may not be able to have every single day worship, but almost always they will have worship on Saturday. They very often will have it on at least Tuesday and Wednesday. They've got it going on. And then what they tend to do, this is what I've noticed, whenever I'm in a small town, they'll tend to coordinate. So if there's one pastor that takes, 2 days of the week to give a mass, then they'll coordinate with another parish that's nearby, so they'll have the other days. So then if you go to like maybe a span of 3 churches within 15 or 20 minutes, you'll be able to go to mass every single day. Here, we've got a mass where I am, of course, Saturday and Sunday. We have one Monday morning at 7, which is wonderful, because that, before you can go to mass before you go to work. And let's see, there's one here now. They don't have one on Thursday, but anyway, they've got. But then you've got churches around within 30 minutes that you can go to if you want to go to daily mass, and a lot of people do try. They really do try to go to daily mass. So they don't have this concept of one day, of a correct day of worship. The church decided, especially after the Industrial Revolution, when man no longer he became a slave to other people, and when they were working in factories, they couldn't get a day off. And so they realized, wait a minute, now when the agricultural area, when man was an agrarian, they could go to daily mass. They could just go before the sun was up or after the sun was down. And so they could go to mass pretty much any day of the week they wanted to. Whereas now, when you have to go to work and you have to take your kids to school and stuff, it's much, much harder. So what they did is they only made one day a week an obligation from the 1900s. This is not from hundreds and hundreds of years. They just made it because they had to fight the capital system, because people weren't wanting, and they knew if they made it an obligation that it would push the big barons of of the Industrial Revolution, they would be pushing them into giving their people a day off. So that is what, one of the reasons they had to make it mandatory. It's because they wanted to teach the world, you've got to take a day off. It can't always be about money. God deserves, just like in the Old Testament, God deserves at least one day. And also keep in mind that at Jerusalem's temple was the only place that they could worship. The Bible is very clear that Israel had only one place they could worship, and that was at the temple. And there was worship 24/7 there. They were always having worship there. So anyway, okay. So even in the Old Testament, there wasn't this idea of there was one day of worship. There was one day of rest. And now we rest in Christ. And the church realized we still do need a day where people are not forced into going to church. I'm sorry, I've got so much going on that there's a package being delivered to me. And there's a couple things going on outside that I'm getting very distracted. But anyway, so that is that's one of the things, is they were concerned that people weren't going to be able to go to church at all if the Catholic Church didn't intervene. Okay, so let's look at 2177. The next part. Sunday. The Sunday celebration of the Lord's Day and his Eucharist is at the heart of the church's life. Sunday is the day on which the Paschal mystery is celebrated in light of the apostolic tradition and is to be observed as the foremost holy day of obligation in the universal church. So the Catholic has many. Now remember, this is called a discipline. It's church discipline. It's not a doctrine, and it's not a dogma. A bishop can change any day he wants. He can move them around. He can say, hey, this year something's going to fall on a different day because of this reason or whatever. So they can move them around because it's not really a doctrine. They have holy days, but bishops can move them around in their diocese. Okay. So, but notice something they said in 2177. Sunday is the day on which the Paschal mystery, that means the death and resurrection of Christ, is celebrated in light of the apostolic. Anytime, no Catholic emperor, excuse me, there was no formalizing, we have changed the Sabbath to Sunday. Nothing like that happened. Constantine didn't do it. All he did is that he allowed the people that were already going to church on Sunday, and very often every day of the week in the morning, but he said, because this is a special holy day, it's the day Christ was raised into heaven. A brand new heaven and a brand new earth was created at that moment. Everything happened. The curse was over. Now, you have to admit that the first day of the week is now profoundly more important than any Sabbath that could have ever been. Christ, God himself, came down and died and saved us. That is by far the pinnacle of all holiness. And so the Sabbath was just a mere shadow of that. So anyway, it was apostolic. They did it from the beginning of the church. The apostles taught them Sunday now is the holiest day that ever was. It's even more important than the first day of creation, because it says Christ was he was crucified from the beginning of time, from the beginning of creation. So it was even anticipated before creation and the first day of creation. Okay. So Sunday, the Sunday celebration, is to be observed as the foremost holy day of obligation in the universal church. Now notice something. When the Protestants left Catholicism, when they broke away and said, no, we are not doing anything by those traditions of man, What did they keep? They kept worshiping on Sunday. Now they quit the rest of the week, and only was the Protestants only, and not all Protestants. It was really the Calvinists and those wonderful Calvinists in capitalism, and they started working. They were very big into work and capitalism, and they were very industrious people in the Netherlands and wherever Calvinism went. But they quit going to church daily. The Anglican Church still has a lot of them have daily mass. The Orthodox still have daily mass, but they all worship on Sunday. And if there had been any problem with that, don't you think there would have been a massive problem with that? Now, we do know that in the East, you see, the Catholic Church was born in Rome. That was considered the West. But when Constantine took the new Constantinople over into the East, there grew up that became the new capital of the world, pretty much. And so they continued, many Jews and Christians continued to keep the Sabbath and Sunday until for 700 years after Christ. Well, there were times that in certain areas, certain bishops said no more resting on the Sabbath because they were being drawn back into Judaism. And so the bishop, in very, very, like the Council of Laodicea, I think is one of them, but those were regional councils where they said, we were having a lot of problems with people trying to Judaize again and tell us we have to be circumcised, just like they did in the Jerusalem Council. We've got to be circumcised. We've got to keep the old laws as far as the eating laws and the clean foods and unclean foods. And the bishop said, no, we can't have this. So for a time, there were certain places they said no more resting on Sabbath, but it wasn't for very long. Because in general, even today, there are Catholics that rest on the seventh day Sabbath. And then they go to church. They can go to church both days. But remember, the Old Testament does not say you have to go to church on Saturday. Let's at least say that the commandments do not give it as a commandment that you have to go to church. All it says is that you have to rest on Sabbath. And so the church has never been against that. The Catholic Church has never said, thou shalt not rest on Sabbath. So let's get back into what the Catechism says. Also, to be observed are the days of the nativity of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Epiphany, the Ascension of Christ, the feast of the body and blood of Christ, which is the Corpus Christi, the feast of Mary, the Mother of God, her Immaculate Conception, her Assumption, the feast of Saint Joseph, the feast of the apostles, Saints Peter and Paul, and this feast of All Saints, which we're coming close to. All Saints is, I think, November the 1st. I think they said All Saints Day. All Saints is the 31st. No, the 1st, and then, and then the All Souls is November the 2nd. So anyway, so we have All Hallows Eve, which is a Catholic. That's Catholic. You know, we think of people go, oh, it's a terrible day. Well, the devil always tries to take whatever God means for good. He wants it to be bad. So go celebrate All Hallows Eve by putting on a saint's costume and have a wonderful celebration like they've done for many, many, many hundreds and hundreds of years. And then November 1st, go to All Souls Day, and November 2nd is the Feast of All Saints. Okay, so let's go on. Should we stop here? Maybe we should stop here. Okay, we'll start at 2178 next. God bless you. And if you can't meet us, I'm just going to go straight into it in a second. And if you can't, well, we'll see you another time. God bless.